Hi all. Today we will discuss about design. So what is design? Design is a strategic decision that is taken by a business which have long-term impacts in its operations. So design is usually viewed in two dimensions. The term design refers to two things at the same time. Design is an outcome of a plan. Design is also the process that leads to the outcome. So the term design is used to refer to both. So technically speaking, design is the result of a plan or specification in the form of a prototype, a model of a final outcome, or the product itself, or a method to develop that product, or to a method to deliver a service. The process that leads to that particular outcome, that is also referred as design. So the process that results in this particular outcome is also referred to as design. So at the same time, it can be treated as a verb as well as a noun. Now, two major concepts that we need to understand when we discuss about design is standardization and customization. Developing something according to a predefined standard is known as standardized way of designing. Once you design something according to the customer's preference, then it is known as customization. So if you do the design according to a particular situation and according to the nuances of that particular situation, then it is a customized way of doing things. But then if you produce something in a standardized way, which is having predefined boundaries, standards, benchmarks. So if you develop something with predefined benchmarks, then that way of doing it is known as a standardized way of doing things. Now we have standardized products as well as customized products. If you look at automobile industry, there are companies that produce standardized vehicles with particular price ranges, but there are companies that develop customized vehicles also. So what is the difference here? In standardization, the company defines how the vehicle is going to be, but in customization, the customer have a say. Standardization and customization are two diametrically opposite components of design. Now let us look at the various phases that the design goes through. The major phases of design can be split into these eight segments. So the design starts with feasibility analysis of a situation. So usually a problem is identified and a solution is found out, and the feasibility of that solution need to be defined. So various tests are usually conducted to identify the feasibility of particular solution. Then comes once you fix on a solution, we need to detail that solution. So if it is a product, the specifications of that product need to be defined. So the boundaries of that product is usually defined, the length, breadth, the shape, the kind of capacity that the product will have, all is defined in this particular situation. Now once that specification is defined, we need to define processes that will result in those specifications. So the sequence of processes, the steps involved, the technical aspects of processes need to be defined after the outcome is defined. So after product specification, we usually define the various processes that we need to follow to develop that particular product. Once this is understood and defined, we usually develop a prototype, a model of the outcome. So this prototype development is quite important to verify our concept. So we have done all those analyses and specifications, and those are our plans. So this is a stage where practically things are evaluated. So once prototype is done, you can go for a review. So the review process is where we check whether things are going according to the plan. Then comes the reality check of it, where we usually test it in the market. So a particular design, a particular product is given to a small group to use. Once they use it properly, so like if you nowadays mobile companies send these mobile phone to reviewers. So they use it for a time. You can see review videos in YouTube kind of platform. So they give feedbacks to companies also. So according to those feedback, company can modify, if required, modify their final design. So once that is done, the product introduction happens to the big market. So this is the next part of it. So this is usually done by the marketing department. So this feasibility analysis, product specification, process specification, prototype development, all these things are usually done by the operations department. The design review is done along with the marketing department, while as well as the market test. Now product introduction usually is the duty of marketing department, where the product is introduced to the end market. Now once that is introduced to the end market, the real-time reviews where customers give feedback to the process, the process or product, is usually done, and according to those feedback, future products are modified. Now let us look what are the influencing factors of design. Design is influenced by many factors. The major factor that defines design is the manufacturability or serviceability. We have designed something, we have a prototype, we have a plan of a particular product. We need to be sure that that product is manufacturable. The materials are available, the technical capacity is there, we have the resources, the money, everything is available with us. So then only we are sure that it is manufacturable. Similarly, the idea of a service, it must be implementable. So we need to make sure that the solution that we have conceptualized is like practical, it can be done. The next important concern that influences the design is legal and ethical things. So nowadays, if you take the case of Facebook have gone through a lot of legal battles because the product allowed people's data to be given to somebody else, or there were other companies who use this particular product's data. So Facebook need to ensure that their operations are according to the statutory compliance requirements of particular country or a situation. So legal and ethical concerns, if you take the case of Tesla cars are you might have read stories where Tesla cars are getting into accidents. So those things are like in future designs, Tesla need to ensure that such kind of accidents are not happening. So they need to be making sure that they are bringing in technology where those kind of problems are avoided in the future versions. So similarly, human considerations, like all this product, all the businesses are designed ultimately for humans to use it. So human factors like safety is a quite important thing nowadays. So if you look at the automobile market, the vehicles with a lot of safety features are able to sell their products better nowadays. So human factors are quite important for a design. Now people prefer things which is according to their culture. So culturally there will be a lot of elements that influences people's decisions. Like people will be okay with certain things, they will not be okay with some other things which is not according to their culture. So like the designers need to be aware of the cultural factors that influences customers' choice. Another thing that is important nowadays is globalization. So now if you think about designing a product, it is not just designed for a small market, it is usually open to a big market. If you are planning to sell it on Amazon is a world market. So you must be aware of the global trends and the standards that is set by globalization. So you can develop products only according to those international parameters. So that is also important nowadays. Another thing that is important is how much is your design environment friendly. So it is like after the Industrial Revolution, if you look at the history of Industrial Revolution, over the past 300 years, the world has become more and more polluted, and you might be seeing a lot of issues with this plastic. So we are going by banning of plastic. So those things, how much are you producing in the according to the green protocol? So there is an environmental ministry that we have. So environmental regulations will be there. So you need to have your designs which follow those regulations and the production must be done according to those regulations. So these are the major influencing factors that defines how the products or services design will be. Now let us look at two more things, the 3 F's and 3 R's of design. So what are the 3 F's of design? Whenever you design something, whenever a designer takes a decision, that person need to decide on 3 things to ensure that that product or service is properly serving the customer. The most important thing that a design need to consider is the functionality of that product or service, whether that particular service or product results in the required outcome, whether that particular service or product solves this particular problem of a customer. The next important thing that is important for a design is the features that will result in the functionality. So functionality, the particular features of that product that will ensure that its functionality is delivered. Then comes the form of the product, the attractiveness of that product, or the peripheral things of that product. So we have this misconception that design is all about these peripherals. Design actually starts with functionality. Then it is a process where we define features, and in the priority, form comes last. 3 R's of design. So nowadays, in order to comply with the environmental and ecology requirements, companies usually force designers to think with these 3 principles in mind. You need to reduce as much materials as possible, or reduce wastage of everything, whether it is materials, energy, time. If you can do something with less resources, that is always advisable. Reuse. Are you able to reuse, like for example water, can it be reused again for producing the next set of product? Then if you can bring in a technology where it can be reused, that is all, it is always advisable to use that particular technology. Similarly, recycle. If it is a waste that will affect the environment in the long run, so plastic is a best example of this thing. So nowadays companies are forced to use plastics that is recyclable. Electronic goods are also usually designed nowadays with recyclable parts. So this is also a major concern while designing something in the today's environment. So these are the major things that you need to consider while you think about design. Design at the same time is an outcome as well as a process. The concept of standardization and customization defines how a design outcome is usually produced. Phases of design are these. The major influencing factors of design is detailed here, and the 3 F's and 3 R's of design. Thank you.